Welcome back to another episode of the Think, Learn, Grow podcast, where we focus on self development. Under those three words, think, learn, grow. If you're thinking, you can find an opportunity to learn. If you're learning, you're creating an opportunity to grow. And anything that's not growing is dying. That could be your mindset. That could be your professional life. That could be your finances. That can be your relationships. That could be your creativity. And that's what we're going to talk about today, unlocking creativity, techniques to faster, innovative thinking. We all are creative. Whether we know it or not, we all have the ability to create. It may not look or express itself the same way from one person to the next. The way I may create, the way I may exhibit or express my creative ability may be different from you. It may be different from the next person, but we all have the ability to create. If you're watching this podcast, you have some level of belief in a higher power. You believe in a creator. Whatever name that you may call it may be what you call it, but uh, we all believe in a creator. And I believe that the creator created us all with the same abilities that he has, just at a lower level. He is the supreme being, so he is able to be supreme in his creative ability, whereas we on a human level can still create. We still have those same attributes. So we're going to talk about that, unlocking creativity. And the way that we're going to begin to understand or crack this particular subject is, let's understand, what does it mean to be creative? Well, the definition as an adjective of being a creative or being creative is relating to or involving the imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. Having good imagination or original ideas. As a noun, is defined as a person who is creative, typically in a professional context. So we all are creatives. We all were created. We all have the ability to create. Typically, when we think about creativity, we may traditionally think about like drawing or expressing ourselves from an standpoint, where it comes to painting or taking photographs or designing something from that level of creativity. But creativity exists on many different levels. You can be creative in your business, the way that you may market, the way that you may handle your clientele can be done from a creative standpoint. The experience that your clients have with you can be done or expressed creatively. That's going to help you separate yourself from the competition or others that may be in the same industry as you. You can be creative in your relationship, the way that you handle your significant other and the way that you create the experience and interact with one another. You can be creative in the way that you may have your so-called date nights or the time that you spend with one another. You may be creative. You may not do the traditional thing with one another that society may deem is what you should be doing in a relationship. You can be creative in that as well. You can be creative when it comes to your finances. You can be creative with the way that you may um, organize or structure your financial blueprint, the way that you save money, the way that you spend money, the way that you invest money. All of this can be creative in the way that you express it. You can be creative in the way that you parent or the way that you handle your children. The way that you uh, parent may be different from the way the next couple or the next parent may parent their child, right? So you can be creative with the way that you teach them. You can be creative in the way that you discipline them. You can be creative in the way that you encourage and uplift them. But creativity exists on all of these levels. When we speak about self development, we all can be creative in the way that we exhibit or grow, the way that we work on different aspects of ourselves. We can be creative in the way that we do that. But creativity is so important, especially today, where creativity can seem to be diminished. It can seem to be a dying aspect of life, where people aren't as creative. They're more robotic. We're doing more things that fit with the norms of life. When we have the introduction, or should I say, the forefront of artificial intelligence, you may see creativity is diminished based off of the lack of understanding of how to use artificial intelligence to enhance your creativity, right? To make your creativity or be more efficient in your creative ability and being creative when using artificial intelligence. But you could say that for those that may not have a deep understanding or knowledge base of artificial intelligence and how to use it to enhance their creativity, using artificial intelligence too much can cause your creativity to be dampened or to be dimmed because you're not necessarily the one that's coming up with the ideas. Artificial intelligence is coming up with the ideas, so you lose your own human touch, you lose your own creative ability, and you lack imagination. Thinking outside of the box is a way to look at it as well. So being creative is so important. So we want to kind of talk about how we go about unlocking our creativity, right? So let's start with having a conversational discussion about creative thinking techniques. One of the most basic and um, at this time is something that we all should be familiar with, which is brainstorming. Actually taking time out to think through ideas and concepts that we have. When we have an idea of something that we want to do or express or want to carry out, brainstorming is a way of being creative. You're working through your minds, you're coming through the thought process of figuring out how it is that you're going to achieve said goal or bring about said result or be able to express yourself in a said manner, right? So you're brainstorming. Let's actually understand what does it mean to brainstorm, right? Brainstorm by definition, can be a spontaneous group discussion to produce ideas and ways of solving problems. It could be a moment in which one is suddenly unable to think clearly or act sensibly. But we're thinking about it from a verb perspective, and that definition is produce an idea or way of solving a problem by holding a spontaneous group discussion. Now, we're speaking of a group discussion, but you can brainstorm with yourself, right? You can have that discussion, that internal dialogue with yourself to be able to formulate a idea and really think it through, right? That's a form or way to be creative because now you're thinking about this is the end goal. This is the desired result that I want to have. How am I going to go from concept to reality? How am I going to go from point A to point B? How will I get or achieve my said goal, right? Now, once you figured out how you're going to get there, and let's say we're speaking from a business standpoint, right? If the goal is to get 10 new clients, right? That's the goal. And you may say that the way that I'm gonna go about getting to said goal is I'm going to use social media to be able to market myself in order to get those 10 new clients. In brainstorming, you can start to use your imagination and begin to formulate ideas of how you're actually going to market yourself. Are you going to do things that are polarizing? Are you going to collaborate with other individuals? Are you going to do something that will attract, like how are you going to attract people to you is a part of your creative ability. And the way that you problem solve, the way that you come to that realization of how you're going to do it is how you express your creativity, and it begins to open your mind. You got to think outside the box, especially from a business standpoint. You want to set yourself apart from the crowd. You want to stand out from the competition or from the market. You want to make sure that you show why they should come to you and why not go to the others, right? So you want to be creative in your approach. It could be the way that you dress, right? Being creative can be expressed in the way that you show up or present your brand, right? The colors that you choose, the font that you use for certain graphics as well is all a part of your creativity. You also can think about mind mapping, right? Let's look into what is mind mapping, right? Mind mapping is a visual technique for organizing information and ideas by using lines, images, and links to create a hierarchy of concepts. The central idea is written down in the middle, and the related ideas branch out from there. So you can now take things from your mind, put it on paper, and you can map it out, right? Now you're able to not uh, get stuck in your head. You now have put it on paper so you can now build upon your concept, right? So you have the central idea in the middle. You begin to branch out, and you can do it from a standpoint of using those great questions, the who, what, when, where, and how questions, and be able to build from that concept or work your way to solving the problem or achieving the idea to manifest the reality of the said result, or goal that you have for yourself, so you can map it all out. It's like having a vision board, right? You put on your vision board what goals that you want to have, and then you map out how you're actually going to achieve them. So now you're not in your mind trying to formulate the idea. You've now put it on paper, and now instead of it being an open concept in your mind that can continue to develop and evolve and become endless, because your mind is endless, it's limitless, you can put it on paper so that you can start to build upon it and be able to add layers to it, be able to add some more flesh to that idea versus it just being a concept. You can make it into a real tangible idea or tangible goal that you can attain, right? But these are ways that you can boost your creativity. Another way of doing that as well is going back to the brainstorming from that group discussion standpoint, right? After you've mind mapped, after you've done as much as you can on your own, now you can present it to those that are like-minded to be able to help you build and have what you call like a mastermind, right? Now you can collaborate with others to build upon the idea that you have. That helps your creativity. Some of us may run into what we call writer's block, or we may be stunted in the way that we think, and we may feel as if we've hit a creative wall, right? Getting out of your own isolated thinking or brainstorming and getting around other individuals to bounce ideas off can spark creativity, right? um Nowadays there's a lot of isolation that can take place, especially with social media and everyone having this comparative mindset where you're looking at other people express their creativity, and then you begin to look at yourself and say, well, I'm not doing that, so I must not be that creative. Getting out of your comfort zone, or even out of the environment that you feel less creative in, and getting around individuals who are freely expressing themselves will help spark your creativity, right? And that leads us to our next discussion point, which is creating a creative environment. Sometimes, in order to create a creative environment means getting out of the environment that you're in. If you create in an office, sometimes you may need to go for a walk. Maybe you need to just get outside in nature, feel the sun, feel the breeze, see some animals, get by some water, whatever it may be for you to help trigger or boost your creativity, right? If you're having writer's block and you're in the house, you're stuck, you've been, let's say from a music standpoint, because I make music, and when I was really heavy in making music, you can be in the studio just listening to the same beat, just looping, looping, looping. But sometimes you just need to get out the studio and not listen to anything, right? Sometimes you may need to just listen to other music. Some artists will listen to certain genres that have nothing related to what you do. So if you do hip hop, you might listen to classical, you might listen to reggae, you might listen to R&B or rock and roll, and that inspires you to think outside of the box, boosts your creativity, because now when it comes to writing or producing music, you're now in a position where you weren't thinking about using that instrument. You weren't thinking about setting up a hook or a chorus in that manner, but because you heard the way this R&B song was structured, the way that this rock and roll song was structured, the way they use the guitar here or use the violin there, now you're like, okay, I might can sample that, or maybe I can use some of the elements in this song in my own song, so you're able to boost your creative ability, you're able to unlock your creativity, right? So the same thing goes for whatever it is that you're doing. If you're locked in a studio, if you're locked in into an office, if you're locked into a particular building where you're creative at, sometimes you just need to get out of the environment, right? Let's look at it from another perspective. Maybe you don't want to get out of the environment. You may just need to change the way the environment is set up that you're in, right? Sometimes it can come from, let's say, if you work from home, you may need to start cleaning up. You may reorganize some things. You may sit in a different chair. Sometimes you just have to shift or move the energy by just sitting somewhere else or standing up and walking around. Some people walk and pace themselves, and they think out loud, they talk out loud, they change their environment. Sometimes they have to bring people into the environment, right? You may need to bring in some energy, right? You may need to clear the energy. Maybe you have a lot of people in your studio. Maybe you have a lot of people in the office. Maybe we just need to recess and have everybody leave. And I just want to be alone for a minute so I can really get in tune with what it is that I want to express. That's a way of creating a creative environment, right? And also, let's say you are in a particular position where you work from home. Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone and work somewhere or be creative somewhere that is different from where you may spend a lot of time, right? For a little while I worked as I was developing my own business, right? I was working from home. I spent some time working in an office that was away from home. So the point of leaving home and going to another place to work was allowing me to be more creative, because now I don't feel as comfortable. I'm now putting myself in the mindset that I'm not at home. So being that I'm not at home, I'm here to work. So now I'm in this particular location just to be creative or just to be professional, right? I'm in this an environment to be at work. So now my mind is shifted to a different perspective, where if I'm at home, I can find it easy to get lazy, or I can find it easy to be comfortable, or to, you know what, I can be creative later, right? You have to step out of your comfort zone and get somewhere that's going to stretch you or spark or inspire you to be more creative, right? So it's very important to be able to do that, right? Because you want to be in an environment that not only you cultivate, but also cultivates the creativity within you, encourages innovative thinking both personally and professionally, right? How do you go about overcoming creative blocks, right? Sometimes you have to work through creative blocks. When we talk about writer's block, sometimes you might just need to write about being in or having writer's block. And in beginning that process, you will begin to find yourself being creative. How can I creatively talk about having writer's block? What does writer's block feel? Right. A good way to get out of certain creative blocks is to actually face it. Right. If a lot of times we're not having a creative block, we just may not be inspired, right? So how do we spark inspiration? We talked about it earlier about getting out of the environment that we in, getting around other people and letting their energy inspire us, right? You may watch YouTube videos of someone expressing themselves creatively, and that may spark you to do something, right? When you talk about journaling, they have journals that have prompts, writing prompts within the journal, so that you don't have to worry about being in a block. You can just refer to the writing prompt and let that be the basis to spark or get you started. But oftentimes, we're really overthinking, right? We're thinking too hard about trying to be creative instead of actually just being creative. When I get into like the position of doing art, right? I'm not as inspired to do art if I sit down and say, I'm going to draw this, right? I'm going to draw this flower pot, right? That doesn't necessarily inspire me. That may actually create a block for me, because I'm trying to be creative versus allowing me to be organically creative. So sometimes you just have to start scribbling on the paper, and then start, as you scribble on the paper, your mind begins to uh move, and you begin to develop the idea. You begin to say, you know what, okay, this is what I want to do. I started with this line here. Now I'm going to shape this. Okay, this is starting to look like a head. I'm going to make this into a portrait. Oh, this is starting to look like a vehicle, a car. I'm going to, oh, that's the tire right there. So sometimes you just have to get started, not necessarily understanding what the end goal will be. You just need to start. Let's start moving, right? Let's start expressing ourselves. And a lot of times you'll find that the inspiration will come as you do, right? You, when it comes to like overthinking your creativity, it can come from just focusing on the end result too much, right? The goal is to be creative, not necessarily to create a specific thing, right? When you think about music, if you are finding yourself in a creative block, because you're trying to make a specific type of song or produce a certain type of genre of music. You may just need to start by just trying new sounds out, right? One of the things when I was in music, very heavy in producing music, I would just go through my sounds that I had already pre-saved and just kind of play around with those and see what is sparked. Instead of saying I'm going to make a trap beat or I'm going to make an R&B song, or I'm gonna use this instrument. Let me just play with the sounds and allow it to. Let me just go through the inventory of sounds and see what actually speaks to me creatively, and then build on to that. Right. The same thing with business. You when you're developing a new product, you just need to start with brain, like, so we talk about brainstorming, but we just need to start throwing ideas out, right? And eventually you'll find yourself getting into the inspiration of what it is that you want to develop. Not every idea or not everything that you express will be the end result, but sometimes we just need to get through the block. We have to work through the block in order to get to the full inspiration that we want to be in, right? When we spoke about creative or being creative, a part of that was in reference to our imagination, right? And a part of having an imagination is sometimes you have nothing on your mind that you want to imagine. So you have to start somewhere, right? So let's just start with the thought. Let's just start being creative. Let's just start somewhere. When we talk about being creative in our relationship, sometimes it means we don't know where we're going to go, but let's just get in the car. Let's just start driving. And as we drive, we're going to see things. And you know what? Let's pull over here. Let's go to this park. Let's go see this movie. Let's go to this restaurant. I never heard of that. Let's try that out. Let's go see it. But if you never get in the car and you never start driving, if you never get yourself ready, you don't put the clothes on and start making your way to the door and getting in the car and start driving, you won't get the inspiration. You won't be in the creative environment or put yourself in the position to be creative if you don't get started. So sometimes it's just about getting started and not focusing on the lack of inspiration. Let's start making um, the environment to be creative, right? So these are, different barriers that may show up. Sometimes it can be the mood that we in. We may not be in the mood to create, right? It could be anything from our energy levels, right? We may not be operating at the highest frequency. There could have been a disagreement that you had with somebody. You could have had an argument with someone, or maybe you were going through a bit of depression. Maybe something transpired, an emergency took place that causes you to lose focus of what your goal was. You may have said, okay, I'm going to get in the studio today and be creative, and then something came up. Let's say you got a flat tire, or something wasn't working with the vehicle, or maybe you left your keys somewhere or lock your keys in the car. These things can become a barrier to your creativity because it threw you off track, right? But there's ways to get back on track. Let's now express how we feel in that moment. Let's write about it. Let's create some art that expresses how we feel about what just took place. Maybe we're gonna write a song about what it feels like to get a flat tire. What makes let's write a song about what it feels like to lose a loved one, or to have an emergency happen. What was those emotions? And as we dig deeper into what it is that we're experiencing, or what it is that we see, whether it's literally or figuratively, you'll find yourself being creative from an unorthodox standpoint, which will inspire you to go deeper into your creative ability, right? So I want to go back again. We all are naturally creative, whether we know it or not. Some of us may feel like, well, I don't know how to draw. I can't be creative. And the actual statement of saying that you aren't creative could be a barrier that's stopping you from being creative, right? The language that we use, a lot of the times, it is what shapes our perception of ourselves. We're talking about self-development and self-improvement, right? So sometimes we just need to improve the way we speak about ourselves, right? We need to change the words that we use. We need to be more creative in the way that we say things. One of the best examples of this is the word can't, or that you cannot do something, right? Me personally, I like this. Instead of saying that I can't do something, I want to be more creative and say, I have not discovered how to do this. I am in the process of discovering how to do this, instead of saying I can't do it. Because once I tell myself that I can't do it, I'm telling my brain to stop searching for the solution. I'm telling my brain to stop searching for the ability to, or search for the resources that I need to acquire the skill set that I can actually do what it is that I'm not able to do yet. Right. So we have to be creative. Sometimes we have to be creative, even if we may not be in the mood to do certain things. We got to be creative and tell ourselves that we are in the mood to do it. Yeah, I am going to be creative today. I don't know how I'm going to be creative. I don't know how I'm going to express my creativity, but I am going to discover a way to be creative today. Right? I am going to discover a way to be happy. I'm going to discover a way to get over this depression. I'm going to uh, speak to myself in a better way. I'm going to find a way to not be so negative minded, right? So we got to be creative in the way that we improve ourselves as well. Just like when it comes to fitness, you can't do the same exercises every day for the next year and expect to see results. Eventually, your body will begin to anticipate or plateau based off of doing the same thing. You're lifting in the same weights every day. You're doing the same robotic movements every day. Eventually the results will stop, right? But if you begin to be creative, instead of running on the treadmill, you run outside. Instead of running on the treadmill on the flat level, you increase the incline, you increase the speed, you do sprints and then you slow down, then you sprint, then you slow down. You got to do what's called muscle confusion when it comes to weights, right? You might do fast reps, then you do slow reps. You might do resistance training or have resistant bands, and you use that as well. All of this is being creative with your fitness, because it engages a different part of your mind and a different parts of your body. You can't just do the same thing every day expecting a different result, because that would be what? Insanity. We want to be creative. We want to mix it up. Just like we talked about environments, you want to change your environment sometimes. And a lot of times we get caught up in these loops, right? Where we're doing the same thing every day, expecting something to change, when ultimately we need to switch it up. And the moment that we get creative about our self improvement, the moment that we begin to change the way we view things, change the way we talk about it, change the way we talk to ourselves and about ourselves, will allow our creativity to be unlocked on another level. So that's what I wanted to discuss today. Unlocking creativity. Go find a way to be creative. That's why we operate under think, learn, grow. If you're thinking about being creative, you will find a way to be creative. Then you start to learn different ways of being creative, and then you'll notice that your creativity is beginning to grow. So think, learn, grow. Let's find a way to be creative today. Let's find a way to express ourselves in a different way that's going to cause us to be inspired, because we never know who's watching us. There's always somebody watching us. So let's be creative. Let's inspire somebody with the way that we express ourselves. Let's inspire someone in the way that we express our creativity, through our relationships, through our finances, through our spiritual journey, or the way through our self-improvement journey, right? Let's find a way to be creative in that. When it comes to business, we don't know who's going to be inspired by us thinking outside the box and willing to step out on faith and take that risk and be themselves from the standpoint of being creative, because we all are naturally creative. We are created by a creator in the image and likeness of the creator. So that means we have the ability to create. So let's go out and create something. Create something for yourself. And part of that is creating the best version of yourself. And you do that by self improving every day. 1% better every day is 365% better in a year. So let's be creative about it. Find something to be creative about. Get inspired. Even when you don't feel inspired, just start. The more you do it, and then as you begin that process, you will find yourself being creative today. So tap in, family. It's think, learn, grow. If you're thinking, you can find an opportunity to learn. If you're learning, you're creating an opportunity to grow. And anything not growing is dying. That could be your mindset. That can be your relationships, your finances, your career, your professional life, your business. But today, on this topic, it could be your creativity. So let's grow our creativity. Let's boost our creativity. Let's unlock our creativity. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share. Let's boost this out. If you know it's somebody who's um, having trouble with being creative, or if you're being troubled or stifled in your creativity, share this with somebody if you feel as if it was inspirational for you and it's going to be a boost for you. If you learn something or discover something or reminded of something that you need to do to boost your creativity or unlock your creativity, share this out. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And also in the comments, let me know, how do you unlock your creativity? Tap in, family. It's your brother, Mr. West, tapping in with you every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, like, subscribe, comment, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, because we're building a community here of those who are striving to improve and those who want to do better and grow into the best version of themselves. And we can do this together. You're not in it by yourself. We're all helping each other. And we do this by building this community and dialoguing about it. So tap in, family. Peace.